Hey Restorers, welcome to this episode of the Restoration Today podcast. Today I'm joined by a fellow YOOPER. I think that this is a first for me, having somebody also from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. For those of you who don't know who what a YOOPER is, I am joined by Steve White, who's the president and COO of PuroClean, and he obviously lives in sunny Florida now. I'm still stuck in Michigan where it feels like -6 today, so one of us is smart and maybe one of us isn't. I don't know. Depends on how much you like snow. But anyway, I'm excited to have Steve here today to talk about PuroClean. We're going to talk about some veterans initiatives that they have and kind of just all the things. I love that this podcast is kind of a time capsule and telling stories. And so Steve is a great person to have here and share his story and the PuroClean story, all the things. So Steve, thank you so much for being here. I am going to toss it over to you to introduce yourself and share a little bit about your background.
Hey, Michelle, thanks for having me. It's fun to do this today, as you said, with a fellow YOOPER.
Yes.
So for those of you who don't know, as Michelle said, it's Michigan's Upper Peninsula. So over the years, Upper Peninsula got contracted to UP. Further, if you're from the UP, you're a YOOPER.
Yep.
And that's who we are. It's
right.
an interesting place to be from, a great place to be from, a great place to grow up. The climate is very much different from where I reside in Fort Lauderdale today. On the way in this morning, I talked to my brother, whose home is right on Lake Superior in my hometown of Marquette, Michigan. And he assures me it is very, very cold and snowy there.
Uh-huh.
He said he can't see more than about 100 yards out into the lake because there's just a solid gray fog out there. So I'm very grateful to be in sunny Fort Lauderdale today. So
the UP is beautiful in its own way, though. I don't know. And I was thinking about, he must have really good insulation on his home, because I was thinking about the wind off of Lake Superior. That is a different kind of cold.
Yes, it is. It'll pierce you right to the bone.
It absolutely will. Yes. So, okay, it looks like we have a little connection issue, but hopefully it's going to just work itself out. So share a little bit about your background with PuroClean and kind of your career in general, how you got here, all those fun things.
Well, the shortest version is I grew up, as I said, in Marquette, Michigan, in a wonderful, loving family, but not a family that could afford a college education. And I was very fortunate that I got a scholarship from the United States Army. People usually call it an ROTC scholarship, but it's an Army scholarship. And like the GI Bill is you serve first, then you get to go to college, right? Mm-hmm. This was you go to college first, then you owe them.
Yep.
So I went to college in my hometown, Northern Michigan University, and I had a great experience there. But I knew on graduation day, everybody else was going to wear a cap and gown. I was going to wear a uniform. And they pinned little lieutenant's bars to my shoulders and gave me orders to Fort Benning, Georgia. And I owed them the next 4 years of my life. I did did 6 years as a young Army officer. And then I got out to start my business career. While I was gone, my parents had moved all the way across the state to Ann Arbor, Michigan. And so I thought, I've been away from family for 6 years. There were big time headhunters who were trying to take me into big companies. But I thought, I'll look around southeastern Michigan. If I don't find something there, I can go with the headhunter guy, right?
Sure.
Within a month after taking off the camouflage uniform, I had an offer to put on another red, white, and blue uniform. And that was in the headquarters of Domino's Pizza.
Oh.
And I have been a franchise guy ever since. So next month will mark 39 years since I got it, which just makes me old. 39 years since I got out of the Army and started my business career, first at Domino's. And then I was in a commercial. I got recruited by a commercial printing franchise. And then I retired. And I was retired pretty young. So I was blessed. I was very grateful, very fortunate. And then I'd been retired for a little over a year, and my phone rang out of the clear blue sky one day. And it was an old friend of mine. And I did not even know that he had a minority share of ownership in PuroClean. I really didn't know much about PuroClean. And they needed a new president, and he wanted to talk me into it. And I think I said no for 2 months. And then he finally wore me down. People said, "Why did you ever take that job?" I said, "I think I'm just really bad at saying no to friends who ask for help." And so, PuroClean wasn't in the best place right then. And the former ownership was, they were on the glide path toward retirement and investments in the future of the company, right? So they recruited me, and what they wanted me to do was, zhuzh the company up for it. And they thought it would take about 5 years. It took 2 years. So I moved here from Metro Detroit to do this job. And they said, do 5 years, get it sold, go back into retirement. Now you're living in Florida. I said, okay. So 2 years later, we closed on the deal to sell the company. It didn't take 5 years. So who buys it? Two guys, two private investors. Where? From Seattle or Denver or Dallas or Boston? Nope, from Detroit. So Mark Davis and Frank Torrey, who also owns Signal Restoration. Mark Davis, founding CEO of Belfour Restoration. These guys end up buying the company. And I said, why you Signal Restoration, very successful large loss company. Why would you want to own PuroClean? And Mark said, well, I know that every day PuroClean franchise owners come across jobs that are too big for them. They don't have to say no anymore. They can refer it to Signal. If we're able to take it for doing nothing more than making a phone call, they'll get a commission at the end of the day. And I also know that Signal all the time is coming across jobs that are too small for it. We'll refer them to PuroClean. At the end of the day, the franchisees pay a royalty. I win both ways. And I said, you guys are geniuses. This is really, really smart. And they said to me, would you stay for 1 year for continuity? And I said, look, in all my years, I don't know that I've ever loved a bunch of franchise owners as much as I love these PuroCleans. They're really good. They have big, giant hearts. I really like them. I will gladly give you 1 more year for continuity. Well, that was 9 years ago. So I guess things worked out.
Yes. Okay. So that led me perfectly into my next question, because PuroClean has had massive growth. And I hear at industry conferences all the time, people talking about how much PuroClean has grown. It's been tremendous over the last few years. So how did you get here? Like, what do you attribute that massive growth to in the past few years? And kind of what does it look like moving forward? What do you envision in the next maybe 5 or 10 years?
Well, good question. Well, how did we get here first? We got here by putting things in the right order. They weren't in the right order when I got here. Okay. You had owners who were getting ready to exit and retire. They're in their mid-70s. They're not looking into the far future. They're not investing for growth. And they had really come to a place where they were putting themselves first, right? They took frequent profit distributions. They ran a lot of their personal expenses through the company. And shall we say, the franchisees were not exactly in first place. And so what I learned from my earliest days in franchising, and when I joined Domino's Pizza, it was still owned by the founder, Tom Monahan. Okay. And that guy was the guy that put franchise owners first every day of his life. And then I mentioned that I got recruited to this other company. When I was in that company, we had an opportunity to do an executive buyout of the franchisor. And my old boss, at kind of the 11th hour, my old boss came along and said, hey, you guys are good guys. I'd love to see you win. How about if you guys be the operating partner and I'll be the investing partner? And so he helped provide capital for us to do that deal. And we were in that deal together for about another 12 years. And it was really, really good to learn from this guy who, I call it playing, whatever your franchise concept is, I call it playing the long game. Mm-hmm. You put the franchisees first. And I tell people, I get asked to speak at conferences fairly frequently these days. And I say, you want to be a successful franchise company? First, make successful franchisees. You want to be a really big, successful franchise company? Make a lot of successful franchisees. Mm-hmm. But you must be patient enough to make it all about their success. And then when they start doing things the right way, and then they experience the growth that comes with that, then at the end of the day, they're going to be a bigger, stronger business. And they'll pay you more royalties at the end, smaller percentage, but higher real dollars. And that's the way to win as a franchisor. So the first thing that we needed to do for 11 years culture right and make it be all about the franchise owner. So that's you. When we talk about our culture, be three parts: servant leadership, active collaboration. So servant leader, what's the highest and best for them? Mm-hmm. And then, and then the extreme ownership part is just being accountable, because we need to build a reputation with our franchise owners that they can trust us to do the things that we say we're going to do. We don't make empty promises, right?
Yes.
But it all leads to this active collaboration, which is kind of in the general sense, it's just franchisee and franchisor working actively together as partners. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't happen. I mean, everybody says they want it, but most people aren't willing to invest in it. And my personal belief after all these years is, if you want your franchise owners to truly be a collaborating partner with you, they first have to know that you put their welfare ahead of your own. They second have to know that you can be trusted to do the things you say you're going to do. And then and only then will they really become a partner with you. And so it took us probably about 6 months to get that culture in place. And then, a couple of years later, Mark Davis and Frank Torrey buy the company, and they do the opposite of the former investors. They say, we know that, the Steve White guy and his team have been working with handcuffs on. We're taking them off. And what we mean by that is we will not take a profit distribution for the first 2 years we own the company. We will reinvest every dollar of profit into more and better programs for you, the franchise owner. And then they didn't go 2 years without taking a profit distribution. They went 5.
Wow.
And they poured gas on our fire. I mean, we were a rocket getting ready to take off, and those guys poured gas on the fire. And we went boom. And but there's been no magic bullet to our growth. It was first getting the culture right. But part of getting the culture right is the focus on the franchisees, right? Mm-hmm. So we had what we call a Meet the Team Day the other day. And this is a meeting with candidates who are in the final stage of considering becoming a franchise owner. And I said, look, I don't want to offend anybody in this meeting, but so our first priority is to grow the ones we already got. Our second priority is the profitability of the ones we already got, because sales doesn't change anybody's life if it doesn't make it to the bottom line. And I'm in this business to change people's lives. And so we got to get them profitable. Third is the satisfaction of the franchise owners we already got, because I want them to be happy, right? And then fourth is to add reasonably to their number. Not go helter-skelter, just stuffing in every new potential franchise owner you can, but being smart about it. Put it, not just looking at the location map as a pin map of locations, but being able to speak credibly to an insurance carrier about this being a coverage map for their insurance. And so that's kind of our approach to the marketplace. And, what's the proof in the pudding? Well, since I came, system-wide sales are 5 times what they were when I first came. And the average franchise owner sales in a year are almost 4 times what they were. So we've clearly grown, right? Yeah. System-wide sales is 5 times what it was, but we only have a little over 2 times as many franchise owners as when I came. So you can do the simple math and say they've really grown the ones that they already had. Yeah. And we keep doing that along the way. And then in terms of that third priority of franchise satisfaction, we hire this outside company called Franchise Business Review to survey our franchisees every day, every year, because we have an advisory council like most good franchises. And when I go to the advisory council meeting, which, by the way, was just in my office here last week, what I want the agenda to be built around is, what are the issues that are most on the minds of my franchise owners right now today? And so we do that survey right before that, right? And then we even do a pre-meeting brief where it's not just my executive team, but also the franchises elected by their peers to serve on the council. We all get the brief. So then we walk in, we're not even talking about the results of the survey anymore. We all already know that. We're going right to work on the things that are really, and I tell the franchise owners when it comes out, please participate in the survey. And I'm hopeful what you see is that the action log that comes out of the advisory council meeting reflects the things that were on your mind when you took that survey.
Mm-hmm.
But what we never knew when we started working with Franchise Business Review, who does this for hundreds of franchises, right? They have benchmark scores. They ask about 8 or 10 questions of every franchise that they use to benchmark us all against each other. And I had no idea. Their benchmark scores last year were based on the scores of 32,000 franchisees in America through all kinds of different concepts. And they give an award to the 50 franchise companies who have the highest franchisee satisfaction scores. They gave us that award this year for the 6th year in a row.
Wow.
So we have growing, profitable, happy franchise owners, and we're fourth, adding reasonably to their number. And so there hasn't been any silver bullets. It's been teaching them, look, in our industry, we got nothing to sell when we're out there marketing, right?
Yeah.
There's no widgets here. We're just out there introducing ourselves in the marketplace, trying to build relationships. So when somebody has a loss, maybe they think of us, throw us a bone. And then we tell our franchise owners the best job marketing you can do is a great job operationally when somebody tries you. And so go kill it and, do a great job. And if you do, why wouldn't they want to give you the next loss and the next loss? So that's been the approach to it in marketing. When I came, PuroClean was the company that never had national accounts, but I could hear from the franchise owners they wanted them. Today, we have a good, robust set of national accounts. We serve 3 of the top 5 residential property insurers in America and a host of other smaller companies, commercial property management firms. So that part of our world's going pretty good too.
It sounds like it's all going pretty good. Okay, so I know that you're also very intentional in the veteran aspect of things. So one, thank you for your service, but I know PuroClean has the PuroVet program, and I've, met some of the veterans involved in that in the past. And so talk a little bit about that. How long has that been around? What is it? All of the things for people who maybe aren't familiar with it.
I don't even get to take credit for bringing that program to the company. I was so involved in basic fundamental issues, and we brought that function where we bring in new franchise owners. We call that franchise development. Mm-hmm. And we brought a new leader into that 7.5 years ago, a guy named Tim Courtney. Yep. And Tim, even though he's not a military veteran, brought that heart for military veterans and an approach to honoring them for their service, discounting our franchise fee to them, reaching out and trying to explain things to them in a way where they could really understand it. And he's really the father of it here. And then more recently, Frank Torrey, one of our 2 owners, Frank Torrey has also a huge heart for veterans. His dad was a World War II veteran and a famous military unit, and is buried with honors in a veterans cemetery there north of Detroit. Mm-hmm. And Frank just has developed this passion and he's literally just putting some of his own money on the side into helping us find more military veterans, because they do really well as business owners, right? Yes. Like when I first left service and got into business, the first guy I worked for told me that none of my skills or abilities that I developed in the military transferred to business, and I would have to start from scratch. And what I found was he was completely wrong.
Yes.
That everything I learned in the military applied to business. I learned about teamwork and about building teams and about building up people and helping them grow their skill levels in advance, about managing budgets, about leading from the front, right? Mm-hmm. We got leaders eat last. Why do leaders eat last? Because when you're eating, you know that everybody in the unit that you lead has already been fed.
Yep.
And we lead from the front. And all of those are incredibly valuable skills in business. But now you take it into our restoration business. And a military veteran, very often, we have this horrifically high rate of veteran suicides. Mm-hmm. And one of the primary leading reasons for that is because a military veteran goes from the most connected they've ever felt in their life as part of that unit to the most disconnected they've ever felt in their life when they get out of service. So they come in to be a PuroClean franchise owner or somebody that works for a PuroClean franchise. And all of a sudden, they have this incredible sense of purpose. They go from having served their country to serving their local community,
Mhm.
from to rescuing people who had something horribly bad happen to them where they work or where they live today. And we're flying to the rescue, right? I tease the franchise owners sometimes that they have Superman syndrome, right? Like not in terms of invincibility, but in terms of flying to the rescue. And it can, at a certain point, it can hold a franchise owner back, right? Because we don't want them on the truck every day. We want, it's okay at the beginning because then they really learn what it takes to do the business, and then they have great empathy for everybody they hire to work for them in the future. Hey, you build the team and let the team build the business. And military veterans are really good at that. It's a passion thing of mine. It has been in franchising for a lot of years. We belong to the International Franchise Association. That association has got a committee called VetFran for veterans in franchising. There's a whole portal. People can go to vetfran.org and they can see all these, they can learn what is a franchise. Because the military, as veterans exit, the military has become good at teaching them interviewing skills and resume writing skills. Well, those are skills to get a job.
Yeah.
What we teach them at VetFran and now at PuroVet is how you can use your skills to own your own business. And in our case, specifically in restoration, well, I am a past chair of that VetFran committee at the International Franchise Association. The committee resides in the nonprofit foundation part of the Franchise Association. And this year I am the chair of the board of trustees of that nonprofit foundation. So it's kind of a sacred trust to me, and it translates really well into PuroClean. And our military veterans in our business do really well, whether they're a franchise owner or they work for a franchise owner. They can have a long and successful career here and feel honored about their service as well. Have that great sense of service to their community again.
I love it. Do you have any specific examples of somebody who's been maybe part of the PuroVet program or a veteran who's come into PuroClean and or been part of the Veterans Forum, whatever that may be, and the kind of the success they've seen or the impact on their journey after getting out of the military?
Yeah, sure. We've got lots of them. One of the newer ones is a guy in San Antonio, Texas, named UL Armstrong. UL served 30 years, was a full colonel in the Army,
Wow.
and retired. And even before he retired, he did the deal to become a PureClean franchise owner. His wife Audra came to training, started the business, and once it was started, then he retired from the Army and stepped in as the leader. Big storms that year hit Louisiana. We sent him into the storm and we paired him up with a much more experienced franchise owner, and he learned how to do storm work and stayed there for a lot of months doing it and got launched and is successful. He's one of the newer ones. One of the older ones is a guy named Chris Sanford in New England. Chris was a naval officer, and at a certain point, he was kind of like me, went to a certain point in the career, then jumped to business. Well, Chris became a PuroClean franchise owner. This is probably about 15 years ago now. And Chris became a PuroClean franchise owner. He never left. He went into the Naval Reserve, and he's still a naval officer today. And he's very successful in our business. So we've had, short term, 15 years with lots of people in between, Air Force, Navy. One of the things I love about the culture is the inter-service rivalries.
Oh,
The jokes. It's when we get together, we talk, and people say, "What's that like?" I just say, "There's a whole lot of towel snapping going on in that locker room."
yep.
Yeah, but it's all in good fun.
Of course, of course. Okay, anything else that you want to share before we wrap it up? I'm curious just from your perspective, a favorite story from the time you've been in the industry. It can be outside of veteran stories or whatever, but you've been in the industry for a while now and part of PuroClean. It could be an interesting loss or just a memory that you have from the industry, anything.
Oh, there's so many. How do I just choose one?
That's a
Choose,
lot of people run into that problem. So good luck.
right? Because it's what we do every day. What we do, the work we do is so incredibly important
It is.
every day, and just taking care of people, right? So it's really pretty amazing. One short one that's still happening right now is we had I talked about the interplay between Signal and PuroClean. We are completely separate and independent companies,
Yep.
but the same two guys own both companies, so they can have us work together any way they deem fit, even though we're separate entities. Big storm Milton rolled through Tampa. There was a condo there that Signal Restoration's marketing found this condo association that needed restoration, too small to them. So they referred it to one of our franchise owners. One of our franchise owners is working on the job. And while they're working there, their marketing person is doing some general marketing in the area and comes across this other job. You may have seen the press conferences of our Governor DeSantis after Milton rolled through. He was in Tampa and he was standing in front of the newspaper building. I think it's the Tampa Tribune. And there was a sky crane that had crashed into the roof of the building. And this franchisee's marketer had connected with the commercial property management firm that was managing that building, and obviously way too big for a PuroClean to handle. So they referred it to Signal, and now Signal's on the job doing that big loss. So they're not from Florida, they're from Chicago, the franchisee. So they come from Chicago and they get this referral from Signal to do these condos, and then they refer another job right back. So they probably won't do any work on the newspaper building, but at the end of the day, they're going to get a big whopping commission check for having referred it. And so that's really kind of PuroClean in action, right? And you love to see that kind of stuff. We have a franchise owner in New Jersey who is a firefighter. And like every firefighter, he has a side hustle, right? My grandfather was a firefighter in Marquette, Michigan. And his side hustle was plumbing. He was the first licensed master plumber in the history of my home county. But this firefighter in New Jersey took a job as a PuroClean technician. And then he became a project manager. Then he became a general manager. Then the franchise owner he worked for wasn't really comfortable allowing him to become involved in ownership. So he moved to a different town in New Jersey where we didn't have anybody. And he opened his first PuroClean. Then he opened another PuroClean. Then his original boss decided he wanted to retire, so he bought his PuroClean. In the meantime, he never left his fire department. He's deputy chief today, still working in that fire department. He's one of our leading franchise owners. His team very often responds to storm. Every time he responds to storm, we get positive PR out of it. This guy's name's Nelson Rivera. This guy has got the world's biggest heart, and he will always find somebody in the midst of a storm to help and ask for nothing in return, and doesn't go seeking the PR, but such a good guy doing such good things that the success just finds him, right? And the PR just finds him, and it always represents our brand so well, highest and best. That's this business, right? Mm-hmm. That's this business of helping people in their time of need every day. And if we do it right and we do it with a tender heart, we get this reputation where people just want to work with us. Yep. So, but there's so many stories I could tell you. We'd be here for hours, Michelle.
That's okay. I love stories. So the next time you and I cross paths in person, I want to hear more stories because I'm here for all of them. Steve, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing kind of your journey and all of these stories, and congrats on PuroClean's success. And thank you for all that you do for veterans. I'm the daughter of an Army veteran who was serving kind of during Vietnam. And so I appreciate all of those initiatives as well greatly. So thanks so much for being here.
And you too.
For more Restoration Today and the latest news, visit our website, cnrmagazine.com, and find the latest episodes of the Restoration Today podcast on your favorite podcasting platform.